There is a giant elephant in the room when it comes to our NHS. The headline figure is that there are 7 million people on a waiting list. That is 12% of the population of England and Wales. So on a street of 100 people in Britain, 12 of them are on a waiting list for NHS treatment. Why is this? Well, militant doctors' unions are queuing up to tell us that it's down to bad pay and poor working conditions. It's not. It's mainly down to COVID, specifically our response to it, which, by the way, was perpetuated by those in the medical community. Many of the same people who pumped COVID fear porn into our veins like a Class A drug. Many of those medical experts who hadn't bothered to ask Pfizer whether or not their vaccine actually stopped transmission of COVID. If you look behind the headline of these shocking NHS waiting times, you will see the truth. And the truth is that there isn't actually, believe it or not, a huge upsurge in the number of new people needing NHS care. No, this is a backlog of people who didn't get routine treatment because the NHS basically just became the national COVID service for 2 years. But this is where the elephant in the room really comes into its own, where it rears its trunk. Hospitals are carrying out 12% fewer operations and treatments than they were before the pandemic. They don't tell you that, do they, when they're all standing there with their hand out asking for more money? One more time, hospitals are carrying out 12% fewer operations and treatments than they were before the pandemic. And why is that, I wonder? Well, we reduced bed numbers during the COVID pandemic and we haven't returned them to normal yet. We also sacked NHS staff because they didn't get the COVID vaccine, so there are fewer staff as well, fewer beds, more patients waiting for treatment, all because of our response to the COVID crisis. The British taxpayer has done its bit for the NHS as far as I'm concerned. The British taxpayer shut down his or her business for the NHS, didn't see his or her elderly relatives for the NHS, lost his or her job for the NHS, couldn't pay his or her mortgage for the NHS. And then the British taxpayer gave nurses 2 pay rises in 2 years. The British taxpayer increased the NHS budget by billions. The British taxpayer even gave consultants a 4.5% pay rise. But did you know that the British Medical Association surveyed consultants and 40% of them are thinking of leaving because they're not paid enough? They start on around 80k and work up, frankly, to any figure, pretty much. I actually spoke to the deputy chair for the BMA who represents consultants, who had the audacity to try to tell me that the government, the taxpayer, wasn't doing enough to pay consultants, and he didn't even know how much they were paid. What does a consultant earn? What's the pay scale? Because like any job, you start lower down and you earn your way up, don't you?
Yeah, so I actually haven't got the figures in front of me, but so I think the pay scale is something which I'd have to go and check exactly. I wouldn't want to give the wrong information.
But crucially, you don't think they're paid enough.
Well, it's not just me that thinks they're not paid enough. It's consultants themselves when we surveyed them.
The BMA surveyed consultants. Those consultants who had a 4.5% pay rise said that they still didn't think they were being paid enough. You are the chair of the BMA Consultants Committee and you don't know what they're paid. Yeah, that's quite negligent, isn't it, really? Talking of negligent, actually, even those people lucky enough to get treatment might end up regretting it because there were 10,284 negligence claims last year. Now, of those, 12% were for maternity, so baby-related stuff. £8 billion will apparently be paid out for maternity cases. Another few billion for other cases as well. What's their excuse for people dying on their watch? Oh, well, we're all too tired, aren't we? There are procedural issues, they're overworked, and they're underpaid. Take a little look at this NHS office. Well, it's all very swish there. And if you actually go online and have a look at this clip with all of the sound on and things like that as well, you can see there are even signs around the place. Please, no problems today, it all says. Yes, OK. All those bickies on the table there and everything. All the nice view there. Gosh, can you imagine what that must be costing them every single year, just in rent? There we are. Gosh, I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? The NHS is not free, people. It is not free. It is one of the largest employers in Europe, and the taxpayer pays for it. You are paying for your healthcare, and you have the right to demand better.